Good day, everyone. Welcome to our video lecture. And in this video lecture, I will be talking to you about lesson 1 of unit 4. Previously in unit 3, we discussed about PBL. Both are PBLs, project-based learning, and then the problem-based, project-based and then problem-based learning approaches. And I believe they were explained in the video lectures. And on this video, we are going to talk about how to create learning plans, both under the PBL and the project-based learning approaches. So prior to that, before I, really took about those things and details, allow me to share the screen so you can watch or you can view the PowerPoint presentation. So we have here, this is now our problem-based project-based learning plan. So as you notice, writing a problem-based project-based learning plan. So lesson 1 rather would be parts of a learning plan, while lesson 2 would be developing learning plan, integrating ICT from the identified language competencies. Okay. All right. So this time I'll put it into presentation mode so it would be easier for you to view. We'll look into lesson 1.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to tell you.
Okay, let's try to have a recap first by differentiating problem-based and project-based learning through this video.
A little bit about the difference between problem-based learning and project-based learning, and try to give some examples that can help you to understand the difference. I'm going to start with project-based learning. Project-based learning is essentially a student-centered inquiry-based process where students are exploring real-world problems and learning by discovery. They're engaging in real-life communication, working in collaborative teams, and if possible, also using technology tools. So for example, if I was working with this 3rd grade science standard, which says, construct an argument with evidence that in a particular habitat, some organisms can survive well, some survive less well, and some cannot survive at all, I would create a prompt that looks something like this. You have just been hired by a wildlife preserve to create signs about the animals around the park. How can you best teach children and adults about how the different animals live and survive?
Okay, so this is an example of a PBL, project-based learning prompt. So here, if you notice, teacher gave a very specific situation where students would be asked on how to do things. So basically, the students here would play a very significant role, and the problem is based on real-life situations, or really a problem that really is existing. So out from that, student would be creating a plan or a project based on what the situation is all about, and they would probably solve the problem, because of course you would still be asking the students a question, and whatever they would come up with, the project that they would come up with would definitely answer the question. Okay, so this is an example.
At that point, the students would begin researching animal adaptations for a region or a biome of their choice. The students would then determine how to best present their information. Would that be something digital? Would that be some kind of poster? What kind of information would you include on your sign? And then the students would be given the opportunity to actually create the signs and present the signs to a wide audience. Finally, students would reflect on this process and about their ability to create the best signs possible. Now, moving on to problem-based learning. Problem-based learning is similar to project-based learning, but there are some differences. With problem-based learning, learners are faced with a problem that is undefined. Learners have to identify the knowledge required to understand and solve the problem, and then work collaboratively to find solutions for real-life problems. There may be more than one solution to the problem. So again, looking at this same third grade science standard, where students have to construct an argument that in a habitat, some organisms may survive well, some less well, and some cannot survive at all, I may begin with a prompt that looks something like this. You are an animal with a brand new baby. It's a dangerous world for your little one. If you don't teach your baby how to survive, it won't live for long. How can you help your precious child?
So this is an example of a PBL, the problem-based learning prompt, the same situation as given earlier, no? And then you can really see the difference, because in the problem-based learning, the question is an identified, you cannot find a question or the answer of that question in online. So you have to create it your own. And of course, it is situational, and it happens in real life as well, though we're not just animals, but if you were, so that is the situation. And there is a problem that is being really presented, no? So this is the problem-based learning prompt.
The problem in this prompt would be that the animal parent needs to take care of the animal baby, and if they don't teach them correctly, then the problem is that their child may die. Students would then select an animal that they wanted to be as a part of the problem. They would have to research about how that animal lives, where that animal best survives, and maybe an environment where that animal might not be able to go. They would have to determine the best way to make sure their animal baby will learn and survive. From a different point of view, there's another prompt that you could provide for students for problem-based learning with this standard. That prompt is, the environment is changing, and if you don't rescue certain animals, they will become endangered. Make a plan to save the animals most in need. Again, the students would begin by researching what animals are endangered and how we can best help those animals in their environment. The students would then make a plan to help an animal of their choice that's in need. Again, there are many different solutions to this problem, and it's the student's responsibility to come up with the best solution to the problem. So as a review, both project-based learning.
So for the problem-based learning, students could come up with a lot of solutions, but they would choose the best solution to the problem.
And problem-based learning provides students with an opportunity to choose what they want to learn within a given prompt, and then work together in teams or with a partner to figure out how they will either solve the problem or create the project. With project-based learning, it's very open-ended, and with problem-based learning, it's very open-ended. Students can choose how they think the project can best be made or how they think the problem will best be solved. With project-based learning, there are more steps for students to follow, and a specific project needs to be an end result. With problem-based learning, students are able to come up with what they think is the best solution. Both project-based learning and problem-based learning will provide students with a great opportunity for active learning, engagement, and a chance to really master skills.
Okay, so it really would allow the learners to master their skills. A lot of skills will be mastered here, and the critical thinking skills. Well, it is a very good approach to really let the students collaborate and to let them do the work, no? Like, I mean, they are learning, they're responsible of their learning. Now, just a review, what is project-based learning? So it's already given earlier in the video, so this won't take much long. Project-based learning is different because the learning is spread out over time. And when we say project-based, it means it would require more time, especially depends actually on the difficulty of the project, no? So we are now down to lesson 1 class. It's the parts of a learning plan rather. But before we proceed, we'll just take a look at first, in brief, what PBL, project-based learning. So students are given opportunity to learn, discover, and create throughout the entire learning process. And we have here the project-based learning, creativity, collaborative learning. They have exchange of knowledge, and it's multidisciplinary. These are really the intrinsic features of PBL. Okay, so they would be creative, they would collaborate. Students here would exchange knowledge, and it's multidisciplinary because it's not just about, English language. We could look into other disciplines too. And then the first thing they have to do is, of course, topic choice and driving question, misconceptions or detection. And they have here, we go here, team formation. You would let the students create a team, and then task planification and time organization. So this is the kind of approach, and new content introduction, information research. Then for the number 6, they would go with analysis, synthesis, discussion, problem resolution, and then the group here would decide. Okay, so after team formation, rather, is they would go with the final product definition. And of course, you'll look into what are your learning objectives. And then task planification, new content introduction, information research, then would proceed with analysis, synthesis, discussion, problem resolution, decision making. And we'll have the workshop. The workshop here, the implementation of new knowledge, development, and execution of the final product. This is project-based. And then after, public project presentation. Now this time, there will be a presentation of the project, expert review, and then collective answer to the initial question. Then the students would do reflection, and then evaluation and self-evaluation. Meaningful learning would be the trophy here. Now, this is the kind of plan, the learning plan that we are going to follow if we are going to have the project-based learning approach. So this is like the steps that students should follow. So that's why it is a bit, it needs a little bit of time compared to the problem-based learning approach, because just a lot of stages. And the fact that when students would create a product or whatever that would they would create, because it's project-based, they are going to also present it to the public or share it and have an expert review about it. So it's a sort of like a research, let's say. Okay, now according to the Bach Institute for Education, the project-based learning is a teaching method in which students, they actually gain knowledge here and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. Now, before class, if I may recall, there were programs in the graduate school that they don't mga non-thesis program, they don't let the students do a thesis. So what happened is that they have the project implementation, and with that, this is an example of a project-based kind of a course or kind of program, project-based. So project-based learning approach, and it's much easier also if we compare it to conducting a research. Now, project-based learning, so these are the components. Of course, we have these components, content, knowledge, and skills, the authenticity, the relevance, the real-world challenge, the need, the problem, and the concern, because we are not just going to create something or base something, base our project on something that actually is not existing. And then we do inquiry, and then student voice and choice. Students here collaborate, employability skills, community partnerships. They would do feedback and revision, and then public presentation of the product. And then students will do reflection. So see, it's a lot of steps here, but it's worth it. I believe it's really worth it. So the project-based learning lesson plan. Now, the project-based learning class focuses on the process as much, if not more, than the outcome. So the very focus here of the PBL, the project-based learning, is really the outcome, because of course you would create a certain product or whatever project you are going to implement later, So here are some steps to help you get started with PBL in your classroom. Number 1 is you have to start with the state or national standards you are required to teach. That's why we do have the course outcomes, or we have the objectives. So what is the standard? Okay. And then use the standards to develop your learning targets. What is the standard? Okay, what is the course outcome? And then out from the course outcome, we are now going to look into our specific learning targets, so our objectives. But we have to base it, what is really this course all about? Okay, what is the course outcome? So after that, you create your objectives and then focus on the standards that have longevity or that requires more time. And longevity meaning it is not short term, no? Learning that is important even beyond just the school year. So something that students would also be needing, not just within the school year, but beyond. Look closely at the verbs of each standard. So the standards that use verbs, especially if you will do PBL, these are the verbs that you have to use in your objectives or in your learning targets. Create, design, or demonstrate. Okay, you create, you design, or you demonstrate. So in case here in our project, not in our project, but in our course, is I will be letting you create a project-based learning lesson plan. No? So next, create an essential question. There can be more than one if necessary that the student should try to answer throughout PBL. So there would be questions that you are going to throw to your students or raise, and the question should be complex and should be referred to often. And also, the question should also be based on real scenarios or real problems, existing ones. No? So then develop the criteria that will show evidence of the learning target. So you should have a criteria or rubrics. So I've always used rubrics, but recently I discovered a great hack. So this is according to the one who made the article. No, there's a great hack from authors Ross Cooper and Erin Murphy in the book Hacking Project-Based Learning. So according to Cooper and Murphy, they provide their students with a list of the learning targets established by the teachers and have students get in groups of 4 or 5 to develop strengths for the learning targets. You have the clear ideas of what it looks like to meet each learning target. Okay, so they curate. So now you're going to look into, and then you are going to dissect, no, the strengths, and collectively you are going to do it with your students. So you have to collectively decide on which strengths to use for each learning target. So it's important to have clear and specific strengths for each one. But according to Cooper and Murphy, they stress the importance of making sure the strengths stay open-ended enough so students can choose how to meet the criteria for the strength of each learning target. Okay, so next, have a plan in place for giving ongoing feedback throughout the PBL. And you will want to have a way to track the feedback you provide your students. And it's also important to have a place for students to keep track of the feedback from their peers, as well as a place for self-reflection and recording any questions, the barriers or successes students would encounter along the way. Now, the next thing that you have to do is have a plan in place for you to be able to deliver the information. And based on what Cooper and Murphy said, it is unlikely that students will accidentally stumble upon uncovering all this unnecessary content. No? So your direct lessons should develop naturally and come into play based on necessity. That's why we don't base our PBL on something that are not needed. Students will be more excited about the PBL and they will be willing to work to try new approaches because you integrate PBL, or they are integrated well throughout the PBL or the project-based learning. So the students will be creating because they are independent here. At the same time, you also do lessons, no? And you have to integrate it throughout the PBL or the project-based learning process. Now, if you deliver all of the important information at the beginning of the PBL, you have now crushed the excitement and you minimize valuable learning opportunities for your students. So talking about giving information, you don't do it all at once before the implementation or like right at the beginning of PBL. It should be done not abruptly or not all at once, but it should be done a little bit of for the entire PBL process so that you would still be able to have excitement and of course minimize valuable learning opportunities for your students little by little. And then it would be appreciated by the students, and they would be very excited. So if you wait until until the end of the PBL to deliver all of your important content, you are likely to unproductively increase the stress levels of your students. So, okay. So here, a productive struggle is important, class. But the key word here is productive. So there is a big difference between productive struggle and just straight up struggle. So here, if you wait until the end of the PBL to deliver all of your important content, you are likely to unproductively increase the stress levels, so unproductively increase the stress levels of your students. So the students may have here struggling, but they are productively struggling, and that is better. Now, have a plan for conferencing with groups, and you also need to do conference often. So of course, students will be doing the PBL na, or they will be into this kind of approach, no? So expected that students will create something, no, based on the steps that were given earlier in the figure. Now, from time to time, you have to make sure you do conferences. O, dili lang kay, okay, you guys do that, and then kano sa aman mo mag-convene when you guys would meet the learners after everything is done. No, it should be in betweens. You have to have a conference with every group, no? So try to focus on asking questions. Sometimes you'll need to use guiding questions, so you could help students reflect and own their learning, and try to avoid giving them the answer. So they are the ones to give the answer. So be aware of who needs direct mini lessons and who doesn't. Because there are some students, class, or groups that they don't need direct lessons or direct mini lessons. Before, during the beginning of the PBL, you are not going to do all the lessons. Na kay mga mini lessons in between the implementation. So you also knew whose group is it, no, who would receive mini lesson. Some of your direct mini lessons can be taught to just the small groups rather, who need them rather than the whole group. Okay, and then next, make sure students have a way to share their learning and reflect on the process. So part of the PBL should include creating something at some point throughout the process, and students should present their creations to an authentic audience. So some simple ways they can do is they would blog about it, or they would present it to the younger students or the younger pupils, and they would present it to community members, mga experts. So another great step to add here is making sure the students publish their work somewhere. Okay, in this digital age, digital student portfolios are a great way for students to keep track of their learning and grow throughout the year. So they have to make sure they share what they come up with. So they would publish it. And students should take time for self-reflection and reflection as a group, and they should revisit the strengths that were determined for each learning target and see if they feel they met or exceeded the criteria, or even if they feel they didn't meet or understand the criteria. And they should be doing reflection class. They should also reflect on the essential questions they've been trying to answer throughout the year.
What happens when teachers design projects that empower students with voice and choice? Students embrace a maker mindset. They define themselves as inventors and creators. They learn to take creative risks. Here they experiment and engage in iterative thinking. When this happens, they embrace a growth mindset and grow resilient. They become problem solvers and systems thinkers. They become divergent thinkers, thinking outside the box. They'll use creative constraint to find original uses for materials. Here they discover it's okay to be different. Often students embrace curiosity and wonder. They become explorers, seeking out new information and thinking critically. They grow more empathetic as they design meaningful products that they launch to the world. On an academic level, students are more engaged and the information sticks. There's often an increase in student achievement.
So students here, academically, they are more engaged and they would achieve more student achievement.
Meanwhile, they learn key skills like project management, collaboration, and communication. True, these projects will prepare students.
So very important, they would learn how to do project, how to manage a project, how to communicate, how to collaborate. And of course, they are innovators.
For the creative economy. But more importantly, they empower students for a creative life. Here they see that making is magic. We know that there's a time crunch in schools. Materials can be scarce. Sometimes you're stuck with a tight curriculum map. But when you, as a teacher, empower your students with voice and choice, they become the makers who change the world.
Okay, so that was the end of our presentation for lesson 1 under unit 4. And basically we finished looking into the video, no? And then in PBL, in summary, it's very important because it may take time for the learners to complete, but so many skills that will be developed here: collaboration, communication, creativity, innovation, critical thinking, even, like so many. And we have to also integrate technology here. So just a lot of skills will be honed or will be developed using the project-based learning approach. So I'm pretty sure students would find it really interesting if they would be asked to do something like this. And I believe, class, I hope you learned a thing or two. Now, for just always remember that when we create a lesson plan using the PBL, we have to always look into the course outcome. And then out from the course outcome, we are going to create the target, the learning targets, and then the verbs, create, design. So that's why we say create, design, or demonstrate, because that is our target, no? Students will be able to present something here. And then when they create the project or a product in a way, it's not just after they create it, that's the end. No, it should be presented to the public and should be given a feedback, and they would do self-reflection, then evaluation. So that's the thing. Now, after, of course, you do the learning targets, is you have the what subject matter is it, of course, the materials, and in the procedure, it has to follow the different things needed to conduct the PBL or the project-based learning. Okay, so I hope again you learned a thing or two from our video lecture. I will see you on the next one, and we'll tackle about the Unit 4, Lesson 2. Bye, everyone.